folks, Ariel over here at Fineth, where today I wanted to do a little video about a question that I've actually had on my to-do list for a long time because I've gotten asked it quite often over the years. How do I do grocery shopping? What I have here is a list of everything that I usually buy from a grocery store. Now obviously we try to produce as much of our own food as we can around this property, whether that's growing sprouts on the counter in the winter, which I've done videos about if you're curious, having our own chickens, produce our own eggs. By the way, if you didn't know, eggs that are not washed still have the bloom on them, the natural coating that a chicken, puts on an egg, and they will not spoil just sitting on the counter like that. We eat them up pretty rapidly. They don't need refrigerated. And then everything I can grow in the garden through the summer, we eat a lot of stuff fresh in the summer, but then anything I can, dehydrate, ferment, all that kind of stuff, because I make, with fermenting I do things like sauerkraut every year. With canning I do a lot of, that's the spice rack on the back of the door, make Danish Christmas cabbage, which there's a video how to do. We eat lots of that as a side all through the year. Pickle carrots in all kinds of colors because carrots tend to grow really well here. Make my own, I call it spaghetti sauce, but we use this as our tomato soup, pasta sauce, everything that's tomatoes. This is not tomatoes I grew, but I've got videos on how I make that. Did 120 pounds of tomatoes into sauce, to our own herbs and teas like mint. Made my own pickles with cucumbers, both sweet and dill. Canned some applesauce with wild apples that we foraged for, and so on. So everything that we can produce ourselves, we do. But we do not by any means yet produce, and probably never will, 100% of the food on this property that we consume. So we do some shopping as well. And this list I made, this probably idea originally came from my mother, who tends to be a very much more organized and detailed person than I am naturally. But I made this list of everything I normally buy, and it's not just grocery items. I mean, it includes other things that aren't necessarily a food item, but everything I normally buy, and I laminated the list. So what I can do is anytime I know that I'm getting low on, let's just say, for fun, what am I thinking of? Rice. I think we're actually getting a little low on brown rice right now. I can just highlight it with this little highlighter. That's something that we don't grow here. And then when I'm going to go to the grocery store, I know everything that I'm getting low on. I do not wait till I'm out of it, and these highlights just wipe off and my list is back to being plain and clean. I will try to, I don't know if there's a way to make this a PDF, but if anyone's interested, maybe I'll just do it as a Word document. I'll figure out how. But somewhere under the video, I'll link to this. It's just a starting point. Everyone eats different things, and that leads me to my, it just lives right on the side of the pantry in there. My point, I can't tell you what to put in your pantry. I can tell you you should put something in your pantry for sure. Obviously, we live in a tiny house at the moment. This cupboard has a lot of food. Up here there's a lot of food. The top of that cupboard has a lot of food. Several of these drawers have food, and so on. And one day we do hope to have a bigger pantry and hopefully a root cellar, but we don't have any of that right now. But you could still eat for months with the food that is stored in this house. And what we like to eat may have no bearing on what you like to eat. What food should you have on hand? You should have food on hand that you eat. That is my main answer. And for every person in every household, that tends to be different. But this is something I've talked about over the years for quite, just kind of as a side note, because this channel isn't really about necessarily, prepping or anything like that. But this, and I've never thought of it as being that, if that's what you're wondering, because I just grew up in a household where, as a child, we grew a lot of our own vegetables and canned and preserved things. So we almost always had a year's supply of everything, because if you grew sweet corn for the year and you harvested it and you froze some or canned some or dehydrated or whatever you were going to do with it, sweet corn in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, comes into season once a year, and there's corn for a couple weeks, and there will be none growing for another year. So you would eat some fresh, and then you would preserve it in whatever way you're going to, a year's worth, because there's going to be no more for the next year, and so on and so forth with everything. You know, freeze strawberries or dehydrate them because strawberries come into season, you know, for only so many weeks a year, and then there is none for a whole year again, and so on. So with everything, it was constantly rotating because different things get ready at different times of year, but we pretty much always had a year's supply of everything on hand. You know, and that's just kind of how the cycle went. And I think that's a wise way to do it. It's how you have to do it if you want to produce a lot of your own food. Like, you know, my jar of mint in there, I can pick mint kind of all through the summer. It even has a long season compared to a lot of things. But right now, with snow drifts and temperatures of 18 below outside, I can't go pick any more fresh mint. So if I had not picked and dried some, I would not have mint for making teas and such right now. So that's just kind of my practice. I recommend that practice to anyone else who is interested in producing their own food, which is another practice I recommend checking out because it's lots of fun and you'll end up with a diet that's better for you. Anyway, this is also a bit of a public service announcement right now because if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on in the world, and I don't know where all you live, I know there's subscribers here from all over, but there's some pretty big shortages. Not so much of the food itself, the food is somewhere, but of food getting to where people buy it and consume it due to a whole bunch of supply chain stuff. I'm not even going to go into that. But in the past year and a half, for instance, in my area, at no point has the grocery store ever been fully stocked. They've never ever been fully empty, but they've never ever been full, you know, like they have been for the first, 30 whatever years of my life either. And it tends, at least in my area, it tends to be rotating things. One week this shelf is empty and 1 week that shelf is empty and so on. It's not the same thing, but it's never full. And it looks like it might be just about to get worse. And whether it does because of something now, or whether it's something like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head of things that have happened in the last couple of years. I have friends who live in Nashville. There was a bombing in Nashville that shut down a whole bunch of stuff, including for a lot of them the ability to do any banking. So if they didn't have cash, they couldn't buy groceries, even if there was stuff in the store because, credit cards and ATMs and everything tended to be shut down. I've had friends in Texas who lived through a giant deep freeze for a couple weeks, and that shut most things down. I have friends in the northeast who have been shut down by a massive blizzard, and so on. So things happen in life, guys. And if you've got nothing in your house to eat, that's just a really bad, I think, really irresponsible way to live, because you're putting yourself at risk, and if you're in a bad situation, then you can't help anybody else either. So I think it's wise to have food around. Should you store the same Christmas cabbage and, tomato sauce and stuff that I do? No, you should store what you eat. And this idea is by all means not original to me. But what a lot of people call it is like copy canning, not coffee, the drink copy as in making duplicates of something. Or I think there's other names. So basically, if you take a list, and it doesn't have to be my grocery list, but think of the things that you eat. And if you don't know what you eat, here's a really easy way to do it. You get up in the morning and you eat something, whatever that thing is. Eggs, cereal, toast, whatever you have for breakfast. Leftover spaghetti, I love leftovers for breakfast, and I don't usually eat breakfast. Anyway, write it on the list. You eat something for lunch, write it on the list. You have a snack, write it on your list. Whatever you actually eat should go on that piece of paper. And then, if day 2 you have toast again, make another check beside it. And if, 3 days later you eat chips again, put a check beside that, etc. Every time you do something, if you do that for a week or 2, then you will know what actually gets eaten in your household. You'll have a nice list of it, and you'll be able to see, oh, this thing has 6 check marks. I eat a lot of that. This one only has 1. I eat some of that, not so much, and so on. And then, if you're going to go buy, for just that example, milk, cereal, eggs, toast, and chips, if you can, and this doesn't take, food prices have gone way up, or the value of the money has gone way down, but still, this isn't that hard. If you're going to buy one of each of those things, if they're non-perishable, now the milk would be somewhat perishable unless you're going to freeze it or something, but if the other things, cereal, chips, I guess toast is somewhat perishable item. The bread can certainly be frozen, and it's much better if you make your own. But anyways, these are things you buy. If it's a non-perishable item, just get 2 of them. Get 2 bags of chips. Get 2 cans of beans. Get 2 jars of pickles, get 2 of whatever, and put the extra one on your shelf. And then next time you go to the grocery store, do that again with anything you're buying. If it's not going to spoil, buy an extra one. And if you do this for a week or 2, you will have a week or 2 of spare food in your house in case whatever happens. Because things happen in life. Maybe just the thing is something totally personal to me. Like, I break my leg and can't conveniently go anywhere, and it's just nice that I have stuff around. There's big and little disasters all over the world, and the more prepared you are for things to go wrong, it doesn't mean things won't go wrong. It just generally means your life will suck less when they do. And that's my goal. I'd like my life to suck less. And I'd like yours to suck less. And so on. And if you do that kind of thing, if you do it, then you've got a week or 2 of food, just do it again. Then you'll have a month of food, and do it again. Then you'll have a month and a half, and do it again, and you'll have 2 months, and so on. And doing that, you can pretty easily work up to having more the way I have always lived my whole life, of having a year's supply of everything on hand, especially things that I don't produce myself. Like, I live a pretty long way from an ocean, so I keep salt on hand. And even though, like, this is my Redmond real salt, the dirty looking salt, you see me put everything, this jar's nearly empty. I have a 10-pound bucket to refill this jar from. This jar is just handier to get salt out of than a 10-pound bucket as I'm cooking. So I just try to be sure I've got those things on hand. And this is basically how I do my shopping. When I know something's running low, and not down to the last, oh, it's all gone, but down to like, okay, there's one prepared mustard of yellow mustard, which I don't even like, but Clay likes it. I like the brown mustard. Anyway, there's one yellow mustard left on the shelf, and I know that's the last one, not opened yet. I'm going to put that on the list. So it's not an emergency. I don't need to go to the grocery store right now. But if you do that for everything that you normally consume, then you always have a good list, and you will never actually, open the door and be like, oh, I needed whatever, and there's nothing there. And then you have a great variety of options, if you like to cook at all, of things to make from what is inside your own house at all times. Now, as far as actually doing the grocery shopping at the grocery store, I live in an area where there's one grocery store, and it's a long, long ways to another one. So most of my grocery shopping is done at my local grocery store. If we drive about 100 miles each way, we can get to a town that's big enough to have things like a Walmart and a Costco and such. So occasionally, like once a year, we might stock up on some more bulk items from a place like that are, again, in the category of things we can't reproduce here ourselves. And we're constantly working toward getting more and more of the food to come from here. But anyway, as I look around my cupboard right now, if you just locked my front door and we could not leave here, let me think about what I could make. We could have pickled carrots as an appetizer or snack with, let's see, a bowl of tomato soup. And I could make sandwiches, because even though there's no bread in the house, because we don't eat a lot of it, I've got whole wheat berries in the house and a grinder. And the other things needed, like salt, water, yeast, I've got all those. So I could make a loaf of bread. We could have either fresh bread or sandwiches with a bowl of tomato soup. I could also have, let me look, and these are just ideas. These are things I like, but this is what I do. When I go to make a meal, I don't go to the grocery store for the ingredients for it. I open my pantry and I think, what do I want to make out of the things that are there? Oh, and we could have a nice, since it's cold, it'd be nice to warm a, bowl of applesauce for each of us. Maybe sprinkle a little cinnamon on top. That would be a delicious dessert. Then we could have a mug of mint tea with that. And then for another meal, let's see, I've got rice and beans, so I could do that. And put some tomatoes in it. I've got, diced tomatoes and plenty of spices to season it up, and I know I have some sausage in the freezer, so that would make a real good, thick, hearty dish. And for dessert with that, we could have some of my canned peaches. Again, canned fruit like that warmed up at this time of year just makes a really excellent dessert. Just looking around thinking there's way more than that. I've got coconut milk and chia seeds. I could make a coconut chia seed pudding for dessert and top it with a little bit of the berry jam I canned in there from some wild berries we foraged. I could get some more sprouts growing, so we could have fresh sprouts and eggs for breakfast, because even when we go through that bowl, the chickens are still laying eggs. That would be delicious. Let's see if I look in here. Oh, I could make a pot of chili because we know I've got some ground elk in the freezer, and I've got plenty of beans, both canned and dried, depending how far ahead I plan. So I can make a big pot of chili with beans and tomatoes and spices, and let me see what else. Oh, I could do pasta tossed with all kinds of things. You can do that with just about anything. I've got sardines in there. I love sardines. I actually like eating them just out of the can, but I could also take those sardines and grind up maybe a little bit of rice flour, because again, my grain mill will do that, and I've got whole rice, and add some seasonings to that and a little bit of egg and make like a fish cake and fry that up. And I could make tartar sauce to put on top of that because I've got a couple jars of mayos and plenty of jars of pickles and seasonings for that. So I could make tartar sauce and have fish cakes and tartar sauce with a side of rice. Trying to think what else. Anyway, this video could go on and on and on, but you get the idea. I can just look around, look at these ingredients. I could do rice, you know, I've mentioned that in how many different things now. I could take some of that whole rice and grind it like I've showed you how to do a rice cream, cook it in water, add some dried fruit, which I've also got in there, or canned fruit or whatever, on top, and put a little coconut milk and cinnamon and a little drizzle of maple syrup, which I've got a few jars of up there on top. That makes a hearty, delicious meal. Under the pantry there, I've got some potatoes, and we've got some of our extra roosters we butchered in the freezer, so I could pull out a chicken and roast that, and bake some potatoes to go along with that, and have Danish Christmas cabbage as a side. You get the idea. We could eat for a long time out of the stuff that is simply stored here. And that's what I want for all of you guys, because it's just so relaxing, for one. Think we're hungry, well, let's look around. What can we make here? And there's always lots and lots of options. And if you think, I wanna, oh wait, we don't have the stuff for that, which means I messed up on this, then you just pick something different and make something with what's in the house. And it's just really relaxing and freeing, and then you don't have to worry about, oh, there's a blizzard coming. I always have had to laugh ever since I was a little child about, you know, there's a blizzard coming. Everyone, you know, ran out to the store and bought, you know, bread and milk. And I've always thought, because this wasn't how I grew up, why don't you have food in your house normally? You only get food when there's a blizzard coming? You people are crazy. And again, my list of things has nothing to do with what you like to eat. You should make your list of things you actually eat in your household. And if you have more than one person in your household, if you have a spouse, if you have children, just have them put the list right out there for a week. Every time everybody eats something, put it on your list, and then you'll know what your household eats. And I really think that's the best advice. I see articles like, these are the things you should store and so on. It's like, that doesn't matter. What you should store is what you will eat, because you're going to be the one eating it. And none of these things are special storage foods. You know, like going and buying Mountain House meals. I don't even do those when I go backpacking. I make my own stuff out of a lot of these things. But, you know, you don't have to buy special storage foods. A lot of foods store just fine. If you've got a little extra freezer space, like a chest freezer, if you're wondering where some of the freezer stuff is, we do have a chest freezer. It's in the shop. And, you know, so even if your household drinks, say, a ton of milk, which we don't do a lot of dairy, you could put a gallon or two of milk in the freezer. Just be aware of whatever container you freeze it in, making sure there's room for it to expand. Don't put a full gallon in. You can blow the jug apart, or a half gallon, or a quart, or whatever kind of, you know, stuff you consume. We tend to use coconut milk for a lot of things, so I've got some cans of coconut milk around. That's what I use generally when I want something more milky and creamy. But then it's just so relaxing. I know we can eat here. If there's a blizzard, if there's a traffic accident that blocks the roads and can't get to town, if, like I said, I break a leg and can't go anywhere conveniently, if there's a worldwide disaster and there's no trucks carrying food to all of the grocery stores, whatever happens, we'll be okay for a while and we don't have to panic. And that's just what I wish for all of you guys. And the best time to get ready for things to go wrong is probably always 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But the next best time is today. And I have friends in the trucking industry, and I have friends in the grocery industry, and I have friends in the food production industry. And I would say I'm no prophet, but on top of all the regular reasons you should do this, if you don't have food to eat in your house for a couple weeks right now, it'd be a really good idea to fix that today. Anyway, I wish you all lots of lovely, lovely meals. If my base grocery list is helpful for starting, I'll see if I can figure out a way to link that down below so that then you can delete all the things off it that you would never eat and put your own things on it. And I just got some of these little sticky laminate-y things where you can stick 2 sheets together, and it's real handy because now I've had this list for years and it's very easy to check off anything I'm in need of, which allows me to be organized when I do go to the store. Hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy lots of good food. Over here at Fineth, thank you so much for watching these videos and spending some of your very valuable time choosing to do that. We hope you found something that was useful, educational, helpful, maybe save someone else some time and trouble, or just something just plain beautiful. If you don't want to miss any videos, subscribe and hit the bell. And thanks for coming along on our journey as we build a new little homestead with our tiny house and everything to come.